Building Reliable Process Models. Part 3. Introduction to BPMN 2.0 Shapes. Today it's Sequence Flows with me, Declan Cheller.
This tutorial is aimed at people who are new to process modeling and experienced process modelers who want to take a more structured approach. But first, some symbols. Instructions are indicated by this graphic, handy tips by this one, warnings by this one, quotes from the BPMN 2.0 specification by this one, and pop quiz questions by this one.
This video is a short introduction to the meaning of the sequence flow shapes, but it's not an exhaustive tutorial on how to use them. Sequence flow. A sequence flow is used to show the order of flow elements in a process. Each sequence flow has only one source and only one target. The most fundamental rule about sequence flows is that they may only pass between elements within a pool. Sequence flows may never pass between pools. The source and target of a sequence flow are called flow nodes and must be one of the following: an event, an activity, or a gateway. A sequence flow may have only one source node and one target node. What, if anything, is wrong with this diagram? Pause the video if you need to think about it. A data store is not a flow node, so you may not use a sequence flow to connect to it. We'll cover data objects in a future video. There's no delay in a sequence flow. As soon as the source node completes, the target node starts. If you need to insert a delay in a sequence flow, you must use an intermediate event of some type. The process will pause until that event occurs. Start events and intermediate events may have more than one outgoing sequence flow. This effectively triggers parallel flows as soon as the event occurs. Note that some tools, such as Signavio, will not let you do this, even though it's technically legal. In any case, I feel it's clearer to use a splitting parallel gateway after the event shape. More on this in the next video when we take a look at gateways. What, if anything, is wrong with this diagram? Pause the video if you need to think about it. A sequence flow is instantaneous. Adding a note to it will not change that. If you want to delay the flow, insert an intermediate event. If an activity has multiple incoming sequence flows, only one of those flows may be active for any given instance of the process. In this example, Task D can start after Task B or Task C, but it cannot start twice. The same applies when an intermediate event has multiple incoming sequence flows. In this example, the process triggers the timer only once for either condition B or condition C, but never both. And the same also applies when an end event has multiple incoming sequence flows. In this example, the process ends only once for either condition B or condition C, but never both. However, I feel it's clearer to merge alternative flows by using a joining exclusive gateway. More on this in the next video when we take a look at gateways. If your process needs parallel flows, you must join them before connecting them to any element that is common. Otherwise, the common elements will be repeated for each parallel flow. In this bad example, task D and task E will be repeated following both task B and task C. What, if anything, is wrong with this diagram? Pause the video if you need to think about it. Both parallel flows will hit the same end event, but a process can only end once. You must close the parallel flows before ending the process. If an activity has multiple outgoing standard sequence flows, the implication is that parallel flows are activated on completion of the activity. Note that some tools, such as Signavio, will not let you do this even though it's technically legal. But I prefer to use gateways to show parallel flow. More on this in the next video when we take a look at gateways. If an activity has multiple outgoing sequence flows, you may apply conditions to those flows. Conditional sequence flow. A sequence flow can optionally define a condition expression, indicating that the token will be passed down the sequence flow only if the expression evaluates to true. In this example, condition B and condition C could both be true, or either one of them could be true. Thus, using the conditional sequence flow is semantically the same as using an inclusive gateway. More on this in the next video when we take a look at gateways. If an activity has a conditional sequence flow, it must have at least one other conditional sequence flow or one default sequence flow to handle alternative conditions. Default sequence flow. The default sequence flow is taken only if all other outgoing sequence flows from the activity or gateway are not valid. In this example, if today is Tuesday, we perform task B. If the month is February, we also perform task C in parallel. If neither of those conditions is true, we perform task D. So, on a Tuesday in June, we would only perform task B. On a Monday in February, we would only perform task C. On a Tuesday in February, we would perform both task B and task C. On any day except a Tuesday, in any month except February, we would perform task D. I prefer to use an inclusive gateway rather than conditional sequence flows because I think it makes diagrams clearer. More on this in the next video when we take a look at gateways. What, if anything, is wrong with this diagram? Pause the video if you need to think about it. The conditions modelled only cater for Mondays and Tuesdays. What about the remaining 5 days? You must include a sequence flow that caters for the remaining days of the week. A gateway may have multiple incoming or multiple outgoing sequence flows, but not at the same time. More on this in the next video when we take a look at gateways. What's next? In my next video, I shall cover gateways.
Watch out for my other tutorials on such topics as structured approach to building a process model, when to model decision logic instead of process logic, introduction to modeling business concepts. If you found this tutorial useful, please click like and subscribe to my channel for more. Thank you.